All right, welcome back to another episode of Am I Doing This Wrong? You're here with your two lovable hosts, who I'm sure you fell in love with by now. I'm Ryann, and I'm here with my co-host Morgan. How you doing tonight?
Hey, everybody. I'm good. How are you?
It is the end of the week. Like, fuck, is it ever Friday? You know what I mean? It feels good. Yeah. But this week was a whirlwind. There's a lot going on at the schools and tensions are just high. It's a really tough time. We are not post-COVID. And I think that trying to frame things as that is just not the reality. We need to accept our new normal, but that's really hard. And it's hard for a lot of reasons. But I think the main one is that we as a society are just going to be a little bit in denial about the fact that like we have to change our ways and the way that we, and maybe not everyone, right? Some people have gone back to their normal and they are back at the bars and they're back out. But for me, I'm just not there. I feel like I have just a different perspective on, all things going out, being around people. I was having a conversation with one of my coworkers about that because she got invited out to go dancing with her friends. Mm-hmm. And she was like, I don't know if I can risk it. Like, I want to visit family. I also work as a teacher, so I need to be smart about my choices that I bring around my students. Like, what, the risk benefit analysis here, like what is really worth it right now? And so I think for me, that kind of brought up a lot of big questions for me. Like, what is that new normal for me? Because I am used to going out, hanging out, meeting new people, being social, right? All of those things. And it's been really stifled, obviously, for the past few years now. So I don't know. I'm trying to figure out what the new normal looks like for me, because it's going to be different for everyone. Like I said, some people have gone back to what they wanted to do and they do that and they're fine. I have some close friends and family that are doing those things, but for me, I just don't feel in that space anymore. Yeah. But that also could be with age, it could just be my new normal is changing for other reasons other than just the pandemic.
Right. And that's what I was going to say. Like, we also went into this pandemic at this stage in our life where we were kind of leaving our 20s, late 20s, into 30s, that quote unquote calm down time, which sure, maybe, but you know what I mean? If you looked at it, that's when you stop going out on a Tuesday night, maybe, and and maybe not drinking as much or whatever the case may be. So I think trying to assess your new normal has more implications than just, okay, let me get back to the bar every day that ends with a Y, And so I think there's a lot weighing in on that.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. And it's just an interesting time, but I am also fatigued, but I'm glad to be here. What I also think it is that I'm finally like feeling at ease in my new space. I'm feeling like I told you, on our last episode, like I want to make this house a home. I'm really feeling that now, which is nice. It's a really nice change. And I think now that I'm settled and I feel a lot more settled, I'm like, okay, what's next? Like, well, the next step is to, meet people and be social and do those things. And that just looks a lot differently than it would have pre-pandemic. It just does. We would have probably gone down to the local bar, hung out at the local brewery, gone to some shows,
Right.
And I do see like the show advertisements, but, there is still a thought of like, is this safe enough? Again, just the risk benefit analysis, like, is it worth it?
Are they doing, do you know, and I don't know, you haven't gone to the shows. Well, you've been to a couple of things, but do they do where they check if you've been vaccinated?
Yes.
Before?
So they do. And they are about as serious about the vaccinations as anyone can really be.
Yeah.
Like you need to have a picture of it or, obviously the physical copy, or you can be tested within the last 72 hours, which, what does that really mean? Right? Like I get tested 3 days ago and I went out last night, like what does that test mean? But I get it, again, that's what I'm saying. Like there's being as safe as they possibly can.
Yeah.
But that's your choice to risk that, right? Do you trust those processes? Is that enough for you to, feel good about doing what you're doing or feel at ease when you go out? And for me right now, again, it just depends. Like I still like to go out and do things, but maybe my hobbies and interests are changing, and which is good. So things that maybe I didn't think were interesting before because I was so focused on, going out and being around a bunch of people. Well, now we're finding new ways to do things like that. New ways to enjoy music and new ways to enjoy art and things like that.
Yeah.
So just getting into new normal but also settling into the place that I live now. So yeah. As I was doing the research, I was really excited because this is a topic, or I shouldn't say excited. Sometimes I mistake anxiety for excitedness. I've done that my whole life. I'm like, oh, I'm so excited for this pap smear. I'm like, I'm not excited for it. It's just really nervous and anxious about it.
Or when you're at work and you have a meeting with your boss and they're like, oh, how are things going? You're like, oh my gosh, it's so great. I'm just like working on like 10 things and like, and you present it in this way where everything's fine and you can't wait to do it. But really, once you like exit the Zoom call, you're like, fuck me. Like, this is crazy. Like, I can't even leave my desk to grab lunch or it's wild.
That's the thing. I have graduated from that with my boss specifically, like with bosses in general or like middle management. I've exhausted that part of doing that, of like playing up things that like really just aren't going great. For example, that like I've had some like work woes where just like my schedule is wild and I had way too much going on, and I even like mentally prepared myself for it. And I was just like, look, you cannot go into this meeting saying things are fine, I just like need a little bit of help. No, you need to be honest, and I did, and like the results were incredible because I had somebody trying to empathize with me instead of somebody just trying to see like what is really the problem here, and trying to like brainstorm solutions that aren't really going to help. Instead, I was just like, you know what? I am really fucking tired. And it's been a rough few months. And so I really need to like figure out a better way to do this because this is not sustainable. Whereas in the past, I've done just that, where it's like, oh yeah, things are fine. It's just that this little thing. And if we could just fix this little thing, we could like get along fine. It's like, this little thing is going to like run me into the ground.
As your eyes twitching and you're crying inside. No, that's really true. And I think I'm newer to this job, so I haven't really hit that point, but I have felt good going into the conversations with the managers that I've talked to. So I do feel like if it gets to that point, I have a pretty solid support system. So that's a plus.
Right. That's something that is really embedded in our culture. It's, even like the sandwich method of telling people bad news, right? It's like, oh, you're doing great at all these things. You could really work on this, but everything else, awesome, blah, blah, blah. Right. And again, there's nothing necessarily wrong with that, but beating around the bush you can really like miss the mark and miss your opportunity to actually get some like real good feedback or help or solution. Right. When you're not clear about what's actually going on, it could actually derail the whole conversation because they're like, oh, everything's fine. So their brain kind of shuts off of solution based and goes into like, okay, so like, what do you want to chat about? This is just a debriefing of sorts. Right. And so I'm trying to work away from that because I think a lot of the times, we try to mask that in our work culture. We try to mask the fact that work is hard and it's draining and daunting and it does cause anxiety. And I do lose sleep sometimes. Like, you might not need to lay all that out for your boss. You could save some of that for your therapist and workshop how to say it. But I am moving towards the direct path to avoid later, confrontations or things that will be, unable to be masked later, if that makes sense.
And I think that's really good advice. And I have been victim of that. I have like self-sabotaged, I will call it what it is. In the past, I mean, listen to quitting your job aka Morgan, saying peace out, goodbye, not working here tomorrow. Like that really came from a certain place, you know? And so I have to really check my habits because I want to make money and be committed to my job and do a good job. But at the same time, there is that line where you know, you're still a human being who deserves to like have time to yourself and all that. And so it can get lost. And if you aren't having that honest conversation, one, with yourself, and two, if you can have it with the people that you work with, like what a plus.
Yes.
Because a bunch of bullshit can be very convoluted.
Right.
If you aren't honest. And so I have to give kudos to Ryann because she is very straightforward, and we have a lot of conversations on FaceTime, you guys, about Ryan's like, I told so and so this because X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, damn, girl, like, yes, you did. And you know, it usually turns out okay. I don't know if okay is like amazing, but so far it's been pretty good. And props to you.
Thanks.
I'm proud of you.
I know. Proud
mama. Yeah, proud mama over here.
No, thank you. It's not always the easiest road, but and even still I'm, you know, working at how to present that in the best way, and, you know, working on my delivery, not so that it can be palatable, but just so that it can get through, you know. There is a difference.
Right,
you know?
Exactly. And like that was one of my New Year's resolutions, right? Like stop trying to people please, stop trying to like work on making sure everyone else is feeling okay around you, and then feeling guilty if you think that they're not, even though nobody's told you that they're not. It's just you thinking that maybe they are thinking a certain way.
Yeah.
You know? And I'm like, no, like, and I've told myself that a couple of times. I'm like, I start to get into that process, and then I go, did they tell you they weren't okay with what you said? Then stop thinking that they weren't okay with what you said. Unless they tell you, then
it doesn't exist.
Then it doesn't exist. It's just in my mind.
Yeah. And even if it does exist in their mind, it's still in their mind. They haven't gotten up the courage to say anything about it. So if they're dealing with an internal processes that looks like passive aggressiveness, which I'm talking from my own experience, that's their own bullshit, right? And that's one of the best things that's come, or that my therapist, one of the best pieces of advice from my therapist has been, do not assume other people's intentions for the good or bad. Don't assume that they mean well. Don't assume that they mean bad. Just don't assume at all. It has nothing to do with you. And that should not dictate your actions, right?
Yeah.
Over apologizing, that comes from you thinking that you did them wrong, and you think that they think that you did them wrong, right?
Yes. Like, you think that I thought that you thought that we like, it's just too much. Like, no wonder this anxiety is so built up in everyone. Like, we can't even get through a fucking day without being like, oh my God, Judy in the break room that I've seen twice in my whole life, like, thinks I'm a bitch now because I grabbed a water cup before she could get to the cooler. Like, no.
Yeah.
Judy's got her own fucking problems, okay? Her boyfriend just took out Stacy to Applebee's, and she's like, what the fuck is up with that? Who knows what's going on?
It's so true. Which also, it just reminds me of a meme that I saw today that said the Cheesecake Factory. Did you see that?
But tell everyone else. Go ahead.
The Cheesecake Factory is just Applebee's with a lace front. Like, basically, it's the same thing. The Cheesecake Factory just has way too much food options.
Their menu is as big as the Bible. It is bullshit. Everything's frozen.
And it sells just the same.
Right. Welcome to America. So it's the biggest fucking menu I've ever seen. Everything's frozen. You can't specialize in Italian and Asian and Mexican and cheesecake. Like, you can't do it all. You can't.
I know. And the funniest thing is that the cheesecake is frozen and sent in. Everything else is actually made there. Like, yes, they do have frozen food, but they like make it fresh, quote, quote, whatever. But the cheesecake is the only thing that's shipped, which is hilarious to me. They're called the Cheesecake Factory. There's no factory there. It's a factory in like Virginia or something. And they're like shipping them in everywhere. Yeah. That's just hilarious. Anyways, it's it's a doozy and I don't like it. That even thinking about going to the Cheesecake Factory is overwhelming to me, because I'm just like, if you can at least get through the doors within 30 minutes to like seat, you're lucky, because it's just chaos everywhere.
It's too much. And there is
too much.
99% guarantee there's going to be a screaming child near you. So
you know how I feel about that, Morgan.
I'm doubling down. You know how we feel about that. Come on. The only time that I can remember I've been to the Cheesecake Factory, we were sitting on the patio outside, and there was 2 kids running around screaming around everyone else's table. And the people are just like not wrangling them in.
No, they're like finally.
They're ruining everyone's dinner.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, stop. And I'm like, no, get your ass up, grab your kid and get them out of my fucking evening. Like, this is bullshit.
Yeah.
No.
It's so true. No, but that's why they bring them to a place like that, because it's like a maze. They're like,
right, because it's caged in.
Yeah.
So the kid can run around, and they have balloons, so they know it's family friendly, quote unquote. Yeah.
Yeah, they just tie a balloon to their arm so they can like see them around like a sim.
So they can see them like, disturbing everyone else in the restaurant, and still, they haven't been taken, so we're good.
I know. They look like a sim character. They're like, oh, where's Johnny? Oh, there he is. I can see the balloon.
Yeah, the diamond above his head is still yellow, so we're fine.
Yeah, so long story short, don't go to the fucking Cheesecake Factory. But anywho, you know what? I love it, because this is why we started a podcast, so that we can bullshit.
I know. Also, what even are we talking about today, you guys? Like, who really knows? Who really knows?
It could be a myriad reasons, but the actual reason that we're here and that we all gathered is we want to talk about relocation. Relocating, and just the topic of relocation is, I feel like it's something that everyone not necessarily has experienced, but you know someone that has gone through the process. You know how daunting it can be, but I feel like there are so many parts to it that are really just kind of overlooked, and until you're actually in the process of doing it, you're like, oh yeah, I forgot how fucking annoying this is. Or, oh yeah, I forgot the big, exciting part of relocating, right? Like there's things about relocation that I really am drawn to. Obviously, I just made a huge relocation across the country. I literally went from one coast to the next. So I'm #bicoastal bitches. No, I'm just kidding. I fucking hate that term. I hate when I see bicoastal in people's Instagram profiles. Like, you're not bicoastal. Like, unless you really are, right? Unless you're just like a mogul, just like here and there, boom,
right.
boom,
you're like
red
3 days in LA, 3 days in New York. Like,
yeah,
which is possible. Never say never, Ryann. We don't know.
No, never say never. However, I'm saying just because I moved to this coast does not mean that I'm bicoastal. I'm just now on this
you're
coast.
Not. You've already said, you're like, I'm not coming to visit you for X amount of time. Like,
yeah,
you need to get on a plane and come see me, because I will not do it. So
yeah, exactly. I'm unicoastal. That's it.
I'm unicoastal.
Sounds like a religion.
It does. It does. Do you have to wear skirts? Skirts only? Long skirts? No short sleeves? Do you have to cover your hair now?
I mean, it's the winter, so that all fits. That all checks out right now.
Maybe. Yeah, that's true.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe I'm just joining a cult. Join us for our next conversation. But
we've already established Ryann will start the cult.
I will.
I will be a follower. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe. I could be like a right-hand man.
Yeah, you're too much of a skeptic. You'd have to be like in on the board meetings.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I'm like, so what really are we doing? I mean, I get it if you want to like take their money and their livelihood, but like, you gotta like, just tell me that's what we're doing, Yeah. Also, I'm a good planner. Ryann doesn't like to plan things, and so she might need me to step in and be like, okay, I got the caterer, Yeah,
he was the only one okay with catering all these, cult people. I don't know.
Yeah.
Cult followers? Yeah, cult followers.
We wouldn't brand it that way.
See, that's why I need you already. Yeah. Job security. There it is.
Locked and loaded.
Locked and loaded. But anyway, so back to the topic. Why do people relocate? And I just want to start this off, as always, a reminder, we are not experts. We are not anything of authority on these topics. We are just two gals that are not only just trying to figure it out, but also genuinely interested in finding out more about things that we always talk about anyway, things that come up in our life. We've both relocated more than once. Some of us to different countries, different states, different coasts. Sorry, I just had to say that one more time, but it can look different for everyone. And so the point is, I just want you to know that this is just our opinion. And there's really no right or wrong answer. We are going to talk about some ways that you might be able to do it wrong, you know, if you're interested in that kind of fiery lifestyle, aka anxiety. But I just want to start it off by saying that relocation, there's no one way to do it. There's no one type of relocation. Sometimes relocating is, a different country, a whole new life. And sometimes relocation is just moving to a new space because, you know, you needed to afford something differently, or, you know, you're looking for a change. So that leads us into the first topic. For me, I was most interested in, why do people relocate, right? Like, what are the reasons behind relocation? Someone picking up their life and either leaving it behind, or, you know, bringing parts of what they already were doing and starting it somewhere else.
Yeah.
And so I found a few articles, not all the most interesting, I'll be honest. So a lot of this is going to be us just kind of giving our own experiences and opinions about it, just because in reality, like when you look up stuff like this, it just has a lot to do with like business-minded people, like how to relocate in style, how to be successful at your relocation. And it's just like, bitch, my fucking podcast is called Am I Doing This Wrong? Like, I don't need to know like the top execs, how they live like in new places. Like, that doesn't apply to me.
Right, exactly. And how many top execs are there? Like, you're only writing this article for like 500 people.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing?
Well, that's the thing though, right? Like, that's the guise of living in a system like we do, like a capitalistic system that's like, even if you're not a part of that very elite group, everyone wants to believe that they one day will be a part of that group. Right. And so people that read these articles, in reality, it's not those, the 1%ers. It's the people that want to be the 1%ers that are like, how do business exec think? I'm going to watch this documentary on Steve Jobs and like be like him and wake up in the morning and wear ugly clothes. Like, it doesn't matter.
I'm buying 20 turtlenecks right now. Like,
no, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter that he drinks ice water at 4:30 a.m. and then like does a yoga, like, you know, yoga for 30 minutes and meditates. And he's really ready to like, you know, run the Fortune 500. He got a loan from his dad. That's how he started it. Okay. He could have woken up at 11 a.m. and that country or that company still would have existed. Like, you know what I mean? It doesn't matter. You don't need to watch what Steve Jobs does in the morning. You can just like go out and make money. Like, that's it. You know, he's like, oh yeah, I did all these things. I implemented like a new system. Oh yeah. Or did like the team that you pay at that company implement the new system and you were just the face of it? Yeah. It's probably more of that. Yeah. So, but anywho, so I found a few articles. Like I said, they were a little bit boring, but I did pull out just a few clips. What? We can be honest.
No, boring. We can't. It's just funny.
So one of the articles that I found was, what are the top reasons people move or people relocate, right? And so the top 4 that I found were, 1, for an upgrade. So this doesn't necessarily just mean like an upgrade in, you know, pay or lifestyle, but an upgrade in terms of like you becoming restless where you are now and itching for a new change, right? Wanting something to just change. And that upgrade does not necessarily have to be monetary. It can be an upgrade in scenery. It can be an upgrade in culture. There's a lot of ways that you can interpret what an upgrade means for you.
Yeah.
And so I really liked that one. Number 2, obviously a very big reason is getting a new job or new job opportunity. Right. Or even venturing into a new field. So wanting to move for that reason. Number 3, an empty nest, which this is a little bit more focused on like starting a family. So if you feel like you've just been like a lone, you know, ranger in the wild, wild west, I don't know where else lone rangers are, but if that's you, if you want to like, you know, start a family, moving to a more family oriented place. And then number 4, relationship.
Well, on the flip side, empty nest is like when your kids move out. like when, you know, your kids go to college and that's why so many old people are in Florida, you know, they like, my grandparents even talked about moving to Florida. It's just, you know,
right.
You're done with that stage of your life. You're like, okay, we've done all the things. We've been with all the grandkids. Let's go get some sunshine, play some golf, do whatever other things happen in Florida. I don't really know.
Yeah, eat bath salts.
Lots of bath salts, lots of murder. Guys, be careful.
Yeah.
It's a sunshine, or what is it? Well, Sunshine State, maybe, but that's not what I was trying to think of. God, I don't want to bring up guns. Never mind. Let's go.
Skipping right over. But yes, you are correct. That's the meaning of empty nest. I wrote that. But yes, starting a family or already raising that family and wanting to go a new place, go to a new place.
You want to start your swinger life now. You're like, hey, let's go meet up with Karen and Tom next door, you know, in Florida, in Boca Raton.
There you go. I want to do that now. Can I do that now?
Right. You want Tom's number? I don't know Tom. PSA. Morgan does not know Tom. Okay.
And then the last most popular reason, relationships. So starting a relationship and, you know, seeing where that goes into maybe a more serious route, or parting, breaking up and needing a new scenery. It's honestly great for both. It can work out honestly for anyone that is looking for some type of change. But the reality is that relocation has to be a little bit growth mindset oriented, because you are going to be in a new place. And just because, you know, even if you move from a town that looks very similar to another town, you know, something like that, it is still going to be new. And so you need to be growth mindset oriented, making sure that you're taking it in and not comparing it to wherever else you lived. Oh, it doesn't have this. I can't find my favorite this. It's not where you moved from. And so if you're not growth minded and you don't have that idea or that mindset prior to the move, it might be a rough move. So keep that in mind. I mean, really, you know, relocating is going to be tough anyway, just because it's fucking hard and it's expensive and it's time consuming. So if you're not really thinking it through, you might be in a little bit more of a pickle than you want it to be, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah. If you're really comfortable with familiarity, then it's not going to be great. You know, like you said, we both moved, you know, there are new grocery stores to go to, like even little things like that, like that's going to be kind of awkward the first time because it's not the same Stater Brothers if you're in Southern California or Albertsons or HEB or what else?
There's
I can't
Fry's.
think of another grocery store. Fry's, that's in Arizona. Yeah, see,
Kroger.
there's tons.
Yeah, all of them.
The Piggly Wiggly. You know, let's include everyone here. Like,
but no, it's true. It makes a big impact on the way that you move through your daily life. Where you feel comfortable can be good for a lot of reasons, because you know that, you know, even something like going to the grocery store, it's so funny. Like going to my hometown grocery store, I don't care what I look like. And I'm just like, I'm not here for anybody, versus going to a grocery store here. I'm like, I care a little bit more, you know, like just a little bit. And it's not just because of the type of people, also that, but it is because it's like, it's just new and I'm not to that comfortable state yet, which I do feel like I'm getting there. I wore my slides like the other day, like my house shoes. And I was like, they don't look like house shoes. Well, they do look like house shoes. But the point is I wore them and I was like, oh, this is like me getting a little bit more comfortable, you know, being in the new place. But yeah. And so if that is something that you're interested in and, you know, relocating is what you are looking forward to, if you're asking yourself, should I move to a new city? You might be ready for it. You might be ready for what that brings. But I found an article that was titled 7 Signs You're Not Ready to Move to a New City, Even If You Think You Are. And I really liked this article for not the reason that it was intended, because I more so thought of these reasons as like, how could you prove this article wrong, right? Like if you're thinking about moving, you're going to find so many resources out there to tell you not to move. Not because everyone's like, no, relocating is bad, but you can always find the bad if you want to find it, right? Like if you're looking for reasons not to move or reasons to talk yourself out of something, you'll find it. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So if you're actually interested in relocating, I thought it would be fun to look at these reasons and see the validity in them. Like, do we agree? Is there something, another way to look at them? Okay. So yeah, so I titled this, Should I Move to a New City? Let's do it wrong. So number one on the list was you're bored with your job. So this was a reason. And again, remember, these are reasons to not move. Like these are reasons that you're not ready. So the first one was you're bored with your job. Do you think that's not a valid reason to move? Like what do you think?
So when you first asked it, my initial thought was it depends on what your job is. Because if you're going to be doing the same thing, like I work from home. So I could live anywhere. I'm still doing the same thing. So that really has no impact on where I live or, what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, like you're a teacher.
Right.
So from the school district you were in to the school district you moved to, I think there are some huge like positives that you've found, right? Like there are still the struggles of any job, as we know, but there are certain things that you were looking for when you were moving to the East Coast, and that did have an impact job-wise on what you're doing now versus what you were doing before.
Oh, definitely. So, yes. That's a really good point. Yeah.
I don't think you were bored with it though, right? You're still a teacher.
Right. No.
So I guess in that sense, it doesn't necessarily fit in with the question, but
no, it does, because that's the thing. Even if you yourself working from home are bored with your job, relocating still could be a good thing, because at least your surroundings will be different. You'll be able to leave after your job and do different things than you are able to do now. Right. And so I think that it's a valid reason. I understand where the article was coming from, because basically it was like saying like, if you're bored with your job and you're just like, I need to change, let's relocate. That might not be the answer, right? Like your answer might be rethinking other parts of your life, right? But I do think that if it's something that you can do from anywhere, or if you're just like, working for a marketing company, or you're working for like billing or something like that, those companies are everywhere. You can find them somewhere else. And if that's something that you even want to stay in, or if you're just going to stay in it for security, whatever, I do think that's a valid reason to think about relocating and think about what relocation could bring to your life. But I don't think it's it's a catch-all. It's not going to solve everything, which we'll get into, but that was the first one. So number two is you're stuck in a rut. So stuck in a rut, not necessarily being bored with your job, but just being stuck in your life in all aspects. So maybe you're stuck in your job, you're stuck in a dead-end relationship, maybe you're stuck in a mindset of sorts. But those things aren't necessarily just going to change because you relocate to a new place.
So I don't know if I'm the best person to ask this, because I'm probably the most restless person. So I would 100% relocate for this reason. And
okay.
Yeah. So,
but there's nothing wrong with that. I mean,
I
think it's valid. No, I think it's valid, and continue.
Yeah, no, I think I just don't really like routine. Obviously, we need a little bit of it just to get through our day to day, but I think it can feel really like suffocating. And some people really like it, and I'm not trying to disparage it at all. I'm just saying for those who don't, I think relocating can be a good way. Like you said, if you're working from home, you're still doing your job, but now you're in a new place. There are new things to explore on your free time. There is more that you can do. And so, I don't know if this is a reason to not relocate. I would say this is a reason to.
Yeah, exactly. And they give kind of like tips if you fall into these categories. So like one thing was like switching up your routine before diving into a new city. And that's the thing, right? Like if you feel stuck because you're just not stimulated mentally, emotionally, physically, all the things, right? And you're just kind of like, what I do every day or what my life is looking like, I feel very stuck and suffocated. Try something new before you venture into a new city. Which I totally understand. It's like, and they gave some like really, easy examples, have you been to, the local art museum if you have one? Have you been to the local library? Have you tried to join like, book clubs or, local things? Have you tried those things? Because you'd be surprised. It might not just be the location. It might just be your perspective on where you live. But it could be both. So I did like that one. Number 3, you won't have a support system in a new city. So I put, my comment to this was like, is this true? Is that true? I don't know.
I mean, I think that you could not have a support system where you are now.
Exactly.
So if you do, you're lucky.
Right.
And, if you don't, then you're okay still as well. Like,
yeah,
if there's your support system nearby, then they can be your support system. I mean, you live across the country now. We have gotten closer in the past year than we have been in a long time, like friendships ebb and flow. And like we said, it was a tough year last year, and we just really like found and have grown so much in our relationship. So if we're just going to use that as an example, if you needed me to get on a plane tomorrow, I would be on a plane tonight. Like,
right.
So I don't think that's necessarily true. Yeah, they might not be able to be there. Yeah, I'll Venmo her for the flight ticket, but I'll be there. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, Venmo pending, but I'll be there. Yeah, no, right. And it's true. The support system, I think the idea of having a physical support system, I do understand why for most, I wouldn't even just say a few, but probably most people, having a physical support system is super important. It makes the biggest difference to be able to invite your friend over, sit on the couch and enjoy a chat, or even just enjoy a movie, when you're not in the mood to talk, whatever. Right. I don't know what that feels like. I'm always in the mood to talk, but but I do understand that. But I also think that there's something to be said about support and love and all of those ways that we support each other needing to be more than just in the physical. If you have to see me to support me, and if you know what I mean, like if that's the litmus for support, you might want to find some better people. I'm just saying, and better people for you. I'm not saying that they're necessarily bad people. I'm just saying that if you have to be around somebody to support them, that makes it really tough because you're not always going to be there. And also people aren't always going to reach out for support when they need it. You as the friend or family member or whoever you are to this person, significant other in some way, need to also know the signs of when somebody doesn't know how to reach out, right. That looks very different for everyone. And so I think if that's the reason for not moving, I think just, again, like consider other reasons, consider the other maybe ideas in your mind of why you want to move or relocate. Right. Because it doesn't have to just be, if you feel like you're just going to be alone there, I understand that because not everyone is going to be the most outgoing. But it could work out in a very different way because you can feel very alone surrounded by people that you've known for a very long time.
That is 100% true. And I think learning to be alone with yourself is necessary, right? Yeah. Like you can like being alone versus being lonely, Yes. Those are two really different things. And I think we can go through that stage at any point in our life, but you shouldn't be deterred from relocating because you might be afraid of being alone, because that can be a tough experience at the beginning, but really rewarding in the end. Like you really do learn a lot about yourself. Yes,
that is exactly what I was going to say. Being alone is not being lonely. Those are two different things. They do not have to be synonymous. They do not have to, what is it? They're not mutually exclusive. Yeah. And that's important to know because I know that sometimes they can feel that way. You can be alone and lonely, right? Like obviously that happens. But you have to know the difference and be able to decipher that for yourself. Are you lonely or are you just actually physically and, kind of mentally alone at this time? And being alone with yourself is something to be prized. Even if you are with a partner, a significant other, living with your best friend, it doesn't matter. You still need your alone time. So the next reason is you can't afford it. So, relocating is expensive, and not only is it expensive, but moving to a new place could also be even more expensive. Usually, not always, right? Some people do end up going to cheaper areas or more rural areas that have lower like rent prices. I thought it was funny because a lot of the articles talked about like home ownership and like, if you're looking to sell your home before you leave, and I'm like, have you met our generation? That's not our focus.
No, but I mean, if you want to buy a home in our generation, like look to Iowa because you can't afford it anywhere else.
It's very true. Yeah, exactly. My counter to this was, can you afford to waste more of your life waiting to afford everything? So like, do you know what I mean by that? Like, can you afford to waste more of your life thinking about all of the cons of what could be bad about leaving? Do you have time to waste, right? Like, what is more important? And obviously, logistic wise, of course, if you literally don't have the money to move, yes, that will stifle it. That will make it really, really hard for you to sustain yourself, of course.
Right.
But if you're actually seriously considering relocating, and you have some of, your quote unquote ducks in a row, you are going to have to realize that taking that leap is going to cost you in some way or the other.
Right.
It might be money, but it also might be your time. It could be your mental health. It could be your sanity. You have to like weigh out what's more important to you, right? Like, what's the trade-off here? And for me, I think that a lot of times we value, and we have to, a lot of times within our society, like we have to value the money more than our time. And we have to trade that often. And so if you actually do have the opportunity to move, and the only thing stopping you is you're like worried about if your finances will like quote unquote work out because you maybe don't make the amount that you would like to make, or the job that maybe you got offered isn't like ideal. I can tell you from personal experience, making more money is not always the answer. I wish it was because it seems easy. Like on paper, it looks great. When I moved here, I took a pay cut and I kicked myself for a while. I was like, oh, like, I can't believe I took this fucking pay cut. Like, and I do more and like, blah, blah, blah. But then like, I thought like, then I tried to, it took a while to get there, many weeks in therapy, but I tried to finally think about like, where was my mental state this time last year? Where was my mental state even 6 months ago, 8 months ago? And I'm telling you, every time it comes up, I'm like, you'd rather be here. Like, you'd rather be making less money. I have friends in similar fields, education, but not exactly like where I am, like job wise. And they've made more and they were offered the big bucks and they took those jobs. And I'm telling you, it did not always work out. A lot of them have taken pay cuts to just have some semblance of sanity and have some connection to themselves in the work that they do. So obviously, to each their own, but I will just share that experience that taking a pay cut in a lot of ways was way better for me as a person. Yeah. What do you think?
I think you're going to make sacrifices either way. So you got to weigh out the pros and cons, like exactly like we were saying.
Mm-hmm.
I moved back to California from Arizona, which Arizona, while it's, it's growing exponentially because everyone's leaving California, it is getting more and more expensive. It was definitely a change for me. At one point I was paying less than $500 in rent for a nice condo in Scottsdale. Like this was a very nice accommodations, you know what I mean? So right. Like I was living a pretty comfortable life, but there were reasons for me to leave, and I eventually wanted to do that. I didn't necessarily want to come back to California per se, but in the end, that was the right move for me. And I'm back in our hometown, and even though that's not where I want to be either, that was what I needed, at the time and now and for a little bit longer. But but yeah, there's going to be sacrifices any which way you go, you know, and not to say like everyone get yourself in debt to like get yourself to a new place.
Right.
But also if that new place, if you're ready to like fight for that new place and you're ready to make that new place that place for you, then go for it.
Yeah. No, exactly. Fight for it. And even if it doesn't work out the way you expected, or it works out exactly the way you expected, but it's just not what you want anymore, at least you said you set out to do something and you did it. And there's something to be said about accomplishment. It doesn't, because I think the idea of accomplishment doesn't always mean that it comes out successful. It just means that you did it. Like you did it. And, you know, sometimes it works out great and a lot of times it does not work out great, but that's okay. Like that's a part of life. There's no part of life that is not going to seem like a gamble that at least that's worth living. Right. Like,
right.
You know, and to say that some people, you know, enjoy their lives right in their hometown or right where they are now and don't want to try anything new, there's nothing wrong with that. You know, that's not to, you know, knock that or anything, but the topic is relocation. And and the idea of relocation can be really rewarding in more ways than just, oh, I moved and I was a big success and everything's great. It could be, I moved and I found out a lot of fucking fucked up things about myself, but you know what? Hey, I did it and here we are. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So something to be said there too. The next reason was running away from your problems, which
ding, ding.
Yeah. We have a winner.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Take it away, Morgan. What about relocating, trying to run away from your problems? Is that valid? Is that not valid? It's obviously valid. No, I'm just kidding.
It's super valid, obviously. Yeah. No. I mean, unless your problems were specifically tied to like your location, if you had like a terrible landlord or like, you know what I mean? No, that's not really totally valid. But I don't know if you guys know this, I'm a Sagittarius. So running away from your problems is my specialty. No, but I love a fresh start. You know what I mean? Like I love that idea of like, let's reinvent ourselves. You know, tomorrow I'm going to be this because yesterday like was yesterday and that doesn't exist anymore. Like,
oh yeah,
that's where I live. And it's not great. I got to bring myself back sometimes. Obviously I got to live in the real world, but but I don't think, but you can be someone new somewhere else another day. Like you're not stuck in this one thing that is happening in your life right now. You're not. Right. I mean, how many lives have we lived? Like, right? A few. Exactly. And so, I mean, this is just a phase, you know. Right. The Morgan today is not the Morgan tomorrow. That's all I'm saying.
Hell yeah. You'll see on the next episode.
Right.
No, that's so true. I follow a YouTuber, Katie Carney. She's this youngish, whatever. She's a girl. She's a woman. She's a woman living her life, but she travels around the country in her car and she's like lived a few places. I don't know how I stumbled upon her videos. It was like one weird YouTube whole night where I just got into all these videos, but she lives in her car by choice. And she, you know, worked a bunch of online jobs and now she YouTubes full time. Yes, I used YouTube as a verb, but she YouTubes full time. She's a full-time YouTuber. And I think that that's one of the reasons that she does that, because she wants a fresh start all the time. But it doesn't mean that she's necessarily running away from her problems. It might have started that way, or she could still do that sometimes. You know, we all could still do that. But I do think, like you said, of course, if it's something like literal, right, that there's like an issue here and you're like, I need to get the fuck out of this place. Of course, you sure move. And hopefully that problem doesn't follow you. But at the same time, like, I don't think that there's anything wrong with fresh starts. I just think that we're so used to in our modern day culture, what we've built up to be worthwhile and of value, a lot of times has to do with where you are, you know, physically, you know, geographically, is that a word? geographically.
This is going to be another masturbation episode. Just like a grammar bomb. Yeah, throw it in there. Geographically.
That one.
Yeah.
Wherever you are. Yeah, you can go to new places and not necessarily reinvent yourself. I mean, you might be able to, right? But even just being you in a different place, you're going to be so different because it's not going to be you in that last place, right? Things are going to change and evolve about you. Your interests are going to evolve and change. And so if you really find yourself getting restless in multiple places, I would say maybe do some introspection first, maybe do some internal work and just make sure that like everything is actually okay with you. Because if it really is okay with you, then maybe you just want to be multiple places. I know for sure if I had the opportunity, if I could really be an interpreter, a traveling interpreter, I would do that in a heartbeat. You know what I mean? I would go to every country if that were an option and, just do a little bit of work here, a little bit of work there, and maybe not live in the best of places or whatever, but like have so many more experiences than I do now. I would do that in a heartbeat. Like there'd be no thought.
Right. Like I moved to Arizona in my little Toyota Corolla. Mm-hmm. I'm talking, it was a 2001. Like this was a little like piece of shit. Very reliable. Stick shift. It was tough. So, but I had nothing and I was okay with that. Mm-hmm. Like I don't have any possessions. Even now my age, I have a bed, a mattress that I love, but I can move on from that. I'm fine. I have nothing tying me to anything.
Right.
And that might change in the future, but I mean, kind of to your point, we are ever changing. We are human.
Yes.
If you go somewhere new and find something else about yourself, then that's success. That's successful.
Exactly. And that's one of the things that we'll talk about in a bit is, the possessions that you have and trying to relocate. Just make sure it's actually worth it because most of the things that you have are still tying you to the place that you're at. And so if you really want to relocate for the reasons of, or not even just for the reasons of wanting a fresh start, but if you're wanting to relocate, you do have to, again, have that growth mindset, be able to build something new, not necessarily dragging all of your baggage. And that can mean in many ways, literally lugging shit across the country or into a different country versus leaving shit behind and just saying, I'm going to start here. You know what I mean? I want to start in this place. But before we get ahead of ourselves, so just some pros and cons of relocation. A question that kind of came up for me while I was researching was, if you're considering relocation, ask yourself some questions. And so this was also from the same article that I mentioned. Of course, we'll always have all of the articles and our research in the description if you would like to check out more. But it has to do with the 7 signs that you're not ready to move, even if you think you are. So some of the questions that you should ask yourself before relocating. Number 1, or relocating to the new place. So if you already have a place picked out and you've already decided, like, I don't care about the good or the bad, the ugly shit that's going to happen. Like, I just want to go on ahead and do it. Ask yourself some questions. So number 1, what size city do you like? I thought that this was a really good starting place because a lot of times the idealized version of a city might not actually be what it's like to live there. I would say being from a place that is, very close proximity to LA, I can tell you firsthand, I've met far too many people that are like, it's just so expensive. And like, it's just so this and it's just so that. And I'm like, yeah, it's been that way for forever. Like if you would have asked anybody that lived here, they would tell you, or even hearing it, it just doesn't sound that bad because you're not living it yet. So actually take into consideration how you would do in the size of the city, big or small, right? Number 2, climate. So that's a big one. Obviously, depending on where you grew up, you might be more used to, more kind of all over the place climate, or you might just be used to the very, sunny LA East Coast, or I'm sorry, very sunny West Coast life, right? And so you just need to make sure that that's something to take into account. I know when Morgan was, thinking of moving to Seattle, that was a big one that a lot of people, say like, oh, it's so dreary though. Like,
oh my gosh. Yeah. So many people said that, but I was like, you do not understand. Like we come from the desert. And then I moved to Arizona. So it was just a bigger desert. It was just like more going on in the desert, you know? And so when people are like, oh, Seattle, I'm like, yes, please, God, you know, water, rain, green, like all the things I never saw. Like if I never saw another tumbleweed again, like I'd be happy.
So true. Also job market. So that was number 3. And this is super important, not even just if you're like in a job that you don't want, or I'm sorry, not even just if you're in a job that you like and you want to look up jobs that are similar there, but if you're not happy with your job, make sure that what you're trying to go into this new area, do they actually have, you know, the population to support what you want to do there? Because there are a lot of jobs that, you know, you could have a huge saturated market in a big city. But when you move to somewhere else, even though it might be a big city, it might not be as big or comparable as where you're coming from. So think about that. Or it could be oversaturated, and where you move, you're like, oh shit, there's nobody that wants this because there's so many people of what I do. So something to think about if you're an actor moving to LA. Don't
give up on your dreams though. We're not here to shit on that.
Still do it, but it is something to consider that when you're going to an oversaturated market. I mean, I'm saying this not even just for actors. I mean, that's just like a funny trope, but I'm an interpreter in DC, and as good as it is, because there is a lot of work, that also means that the competition is that much harder. And it's that much more quality level work that is expected. And so it can work both ways, right? It can be that way as well. So I'll self-deprecate before I,
if you're an actor, go to Idaho.
Yeah.
Actor in Idaho. You're the only one.
Yeah.
They're all in LA.
No, they're all acting. They're acting like they like it there. So no shade. Enjoy Idaho. Enjoy the potatoes. I did.
Yeah.
Number 4, connections to the city. So this can mean, you know, personal relationships or just actual connections to the city, meaning like, do you actually enjoy the space that city takes up? Does it vibe with you, right? Does it mesh well with you? If you were to visit that city, are you avoiding a lot of things that, you know, that you'll have to deal with when you actually live there, right? Like that was one thing visiting New York now as an adult. I was like, this is interesting because I'm still staying at a hotel, but I'm more cognizant of like the everyday people, the people that actually live here. And I don't prefer that lifestyle, but I totally see why someone could like that lifestyle. But I do see a lot of, I mean, that's like, you know, a very common trope, I guess, of New Yorkers. It's like, they're just always angry, but they're angry because of the tourists, but the tourists are the reason that, like, you know, it's what it is, you know? So it's like just this like cyclical shit. And, but the reality is that might be something that is okay with you. And you might enjoy that, you know, you might enjoy the hustle bustle lifestyle. You might enjoy being an angry New Yorker, you know, like people talk about that too. It's like, this is my lifestyle. I don't know anything else. So just something to consider. Number 5 was, what value do you see in the city? Because there's no such thing as the best city to live in. So, you know what I mean? And it's not just the idealized version that you see on TV. You might just see a city that is very quaint and quiet, and you're like, oh, that just is like my dream place to live. Nobody will bother me. Sorry to break it to you. There's people everywhere. We've colonized the earth. So
right. And they're, you know right. I mean? Like, and going back to our LA example, like, oh, the city of lights, like this beautiful, like Hollywood place. And it's like, okay, well, we grew up near LA. Like, you know, there's Skid Row there. I mean, you can be, you know, in Beverly Hills in 1 second and walking past people living in like, you know, tent encampments on the next sidewalk over. Like, it all blends together, and that's the world we live in, unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to look at it. But if you're, you know, if you're leaving the potatoes in Idaho and you want to come on over, like, that's the reality of it.
Yes. Right. And moving there and then being upset at the people that live there, or the people that live their lives differently than you thought it was going to look is also unfair, right? Because
they're living their lives, right?
They're living their lives.
Don't project.
Right. Exactly.
If you're relocating, don't project.
Yeah. And oh man, I cannot count how many times I've heard people say that. yeah, LA is nice. It's just like, there's just so many like homeless people and and it's just like, first of all, that's fucked up.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Like, that's a bigger social issue. You want to talk about what we're doing to help people who have mental health issues, or, you know, the instability of our economy that can't support, or, you know, whatever. So yes,
but that's really true, because literally that brings me to the next point, was, do the pros outweigh the cons? So why are people drawn to those cities despite the setbacks, right? Because there's a lot of people that move to big cities, or, you know, very saturated cities, and love it. They love the dense population. They love the fact that, you know, they come into contact with hundreds of people every day, and they, you know, they work at the local coffee shop and they see so many different people. Some people thrive on that and they love it, and they move to these cities and they add to the fabric of that society, right? Like, they add to it and they're glad to be there, enriching it. But that's not always the case. And so you need to decide for yourself, do the pros outweigh the cons? Because are the things that are quote unquote unsavory to you, is that a daily occurrence that you're going to be a part of every day? If you're not a person that really likes crowded places, you know, are you going to be able to move to the suburbs of New York and, you know, take the metro into the city to go to things? Because you're still going to have to be around people a lot. You know, are you going to be able to use the subway system? Are you going to be feel comfortable in those things? And so I can, you know, just from personal experience, I really like that part of big cities. I think that you see like what the city is really like on subways, and, you know, catching, you know, the little train here and there, if you go to San Diego, or little things like that. It really adds to the flavor of understanding like what's going on in that city, aside from just the big amusement parks or the big things that, you know, most people know to go, Broadway or something like that. Well, how do you get to Broadway, right? Like, what does that street look like? Like, what are the food places around it? You know, like, how do you experience that city in all of its glory, instead of just picking out the parts that you think work for you?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Like, I think, one, I'm definitely more of a city person. Like, I could never have a backyard again. I would be fine with that. I'm good. You know, I'm good. But I like that. Like, you are like kind of a part of like the beat of the city, you know, like there's always something going on, even if you're just walking down the street. I love that. You know, I don't care to, I like my own space, but that just kind of means like, maybe I don't want to talk to someone like for an hour. Like but I still want to know what's going on. I still want to kind of keep up with things. And that's my vibe, at least. That's my stance.
Yes. No, love that. And super true. And so that leads me to one of the funny articles that I found was titled "The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly of Moving." So moving on from, you know, you've weighed everything out, you want to move now, you know, what does that moving process look like, right? What does the actual relocation look like? Especially if you don't get a stipend. Now, if you get a stipend and you get to move to a new place and you just get to like enjoy the luxury of flying on a plane while you're, you know, bags are flying behind you and all the things, like, that's wonderful.
While some guys in a truck have to drive your shit like across like 8 states.
Yeah, exactly. If that's your experience, you know, cheers to you. Pop some bubbly for me, because I don't know what the fuck that's like. But I liked this article because it was just like, it was like if you asked like the most Debbie Downer person what their move was like, you know, like when you ask somebody like how they are and they truly tell you how they are. Like, you can respect the fact that they're being honest, but you're just like, I just wanted the coffee. Like, I don't need to know. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just in the break room. Yeah, exactly. Like, oh, my morning was awful. I woke up late and my dog shit in my, you know, my shit in my room, and I had to like, my roommate was yelling, and like, cool.
I know. So at work, I work with clients, and like, I'll answer the phone. I'm like, oh, hi, how are you? And they're like, oh, not good. And I'm like, you know, I can't be like, I'm not good either, you know. Like, it's my job to help you, so I can't be like, ugh, me neither, like, everything is terrible.
Maybe you should just be like double negative, you know. How are you?
Maybe, yeah, we could have a good laugh about it. Yeah, maybe. But
it's an awful day. Yeah, it's an awful day. Let's get you paid.
Right. But I do have to say, on the flip side, moving is probably one of the worst things in the whole world. No, that's a big statement. The world's pretty terrible. I'm sorry. I was being really dramatic. As I said it, I was like, oh, Morgan. There's like war, poverty, sex
homeless
trafficking.
encampments.
I know. We've had a lot of broad topics on this episode. This is me checking myself. I'm just saying moving's not great.
Oh, but
oh, cringe moment. We might put that out.
But hey, it's all
no, I'm just saying
a matter
moving
of
isn't great.
But it's
and
all
I
a
think
matter of perspective.
I don't know if we brought it up on this episode, but there was something I read. Maybe we brought it up on another episode that moving was a huge cause of strife in relationships.
We didn't. But that's one of the reasons why, like, that's like the support system. They talked about that a little bit in the support system. Mm-hmm. Basically, that could cause the rift in relationships. Like, that's a big reason. Even when people think that, like, we're strong together, I'm going to move to this new place, we're going to continue to be strong, it tends to be one of the biggest reasons why people break up, for sure. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I didn't really want to bring that up because honestly, I just think there's something to be said about wanting to move to a new place without your significant other. I'm not saying it's impossible.
No. So what I was thinking of, the statistic that I saw, and I don't think we've talked about it on the show yet, was like, what is like worse for people? Like, what for you is a worse like experience? Like getting a divorce, breaking up with a partner, moving. Shit. Moving was higher than like breaking up with someone. Like, people would rather stay together with someone they don't like anymore than have to move their shit from one place to another. That's what I was talking about. Like, the act of moving, people think statistically, I feel like it was like 50%. It was really, really high.
Hilarious.
But
that totally makes sense. That's why people stay together so long. They don't want to go through the process of like moving. It's a bitch. It's
the worst. You have to go through all the stuff you bought that you never used, and then
but you have to do it with or without a person that you fucking don't want to.
And then how do you decide who's like what's what for who?
Yeah. Why do you think we have divorce lawyers? I
know.
That's why.
Yeah.
It's fucking hard. It's like, now I gotta like go through all this shit. And that's the reality, is that like you don't really go through your shit like that. I spring clean and stuff like that, but that's not the type of spring cleaning that I'm talking about. When we moved here, we purged, which, is like a part of like the next topic. It's like, we literally had to get rid of almost everything, like literally almost everything. We went from filling a 2-bedroom house, or it's a 3-bedroom house, but one of the rooms we really didn't use, but we went from a 3-bedroom house to a car, an SUV at that. And we had a few boxes that we sent over, but it was like, purge it, get rid of it. Like, that's one of the biggest things, which is literally on the list. But we'll get there. That's hilarious though. So I like that you added that. Anyways, so the good and bad and the ugly. So new job opportunities may suck. So you may move to a new place and then job opportunities suck. The stress of commuting to work. A lot of times when people move to new places, they don't realize the commute, or it seems a lot less in their mind. 15 miles, that's no big deal. 25 miles, that's no big deal. Well, it is, especially depending on where you live.
Yeah, 25 miles in California, that's an hour and a half drive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it feels like an hour and a half, and you're only moving like a little bit. So it's almost even more frustrating, right? Because it's like these little spurts of moving and stopping and blights and all this bullshit, it's
right.
It's a lot.
You better turn on your favorite podcast, aka this one.
There you go.
To get you through that commute.
And no, that's actually when I really started to enjoy podcasts, was when I had a longer commute, because I was like, I got to focus on something else, because
this drive is killing me.
This drive is killing me. Exactly. I thought this one was funny. Valuable items could be damaged in moving. So that's like a bad part. That's like a con, which I'm just like, yeah, all these reasons could also just happen at home. You could have a shitty job that you hate the commute and you broke your favorite boss.
Right.
Like, those things could all happen in the same day.
Yeah.
Probably more.
They were really reaching in this article.
No, exactly. It's just like if the Debbie Downer wrote an article and was just like, moving's bad. But this one was the best. hiring quote unquote rogue movers could run away with your stuff. Are we on Craigslist?
I'd be like, thank you.
Are you scraping
thank you. Thank you for taking all the bullshit I didn't want to go through because moving sucks. And it's your profession. So you know firsthand that it's bullshit.
Very true. Good point. Love that.
They're like, Lisa, you didn't want that vase anyway. You never put a goddamn flower in it one time in your life. No.
So true. Yeah. If you have to clean something off to pack it, you haven't been using it. If you have to clean a vase off to actually pack it, you haven't been using it. Leave the shit alone. You know what I mean?
Right. Even unless clothes, it's like a family heirloom or like an antique, like
even still toss it. No, I'm just kidding. I have no connection to any material objects. I'm just like, toss that.
I don't, but that's because I don't have any like heirlooms. You know what I mean? I think I would if I had like something like that. Okay. I just don't have anything like that.
Okay. Well, get me an heirloom and I'll keep it.
Well, it's not an heirloom if I just, what am I gonna give you? My grandma's ring or something? Like that, no.
We can't make an heirloom? You can't give me something
I don't know.
that becomes an heirloom?
At what point does something become an heirloom?
I don't know.
But what's the threshold for heirloom? We might have to look that up.
We'll get into that. That'll be an episode. Heirlooms.
We'll let tomatoes you guys know.
Or artifacts.
Give me a tomato though. I love heirloom tomatoes.
I love a good heirloom
Just like
tomato.
some salt and pepper. Ooh. Fuck me up. That's so good.
We're so 30. Okay.
On a bagel with like, no, I'm just kidding. Okay.
We're back to it. Yeah. Full circle.
He's a bagel girl.
But anyway, so moving on to the last topic, because I do want to talk about if we've done it wrong, right? Like, what have we done wrong in the process? And so I did find an article, but I want to kind of compare it to what we feel like we've done wrong. Like, have we done these things? Some of them, yes. Most of them, no. So it's from lifehack.org, and it's 7 tips to keep in mind while moving to a new place. So number 1, get yourself organized. Moving requires planning. Make a master plan and write it down. No. Is this necessary?
I mean, it might be necessary, but neither you nor I or the kind of people who do that. I will call a spade. We are not those people.
Hell no.
We're like, oh, we're moving. They're like, oh, when? Like, oh, got a lot of stuff to do. We're like, tomorrow. We haven't started. Why? Like, no, we are not those people.
So true. Exactly. It made me think of the fad of like vision boards, which I don't know if it's a fad. I just remember hearing a lot about them. And I was just like, are they actually helpful? Like, is it helpful that I go buy a $2 poster board and like cut out magazine shit from it? I did that when I was 7 and nothing changed for me then. Like,
you were 7 and you didn't know the aspirations of when you were going to be 30.
Fair enough. I mean, however, I thought I did. I thought I was going to wear bell bottoms for the rest of my life. So,
I mean, that was very in. It was a very specific time that we grew up. But I like a vision board. I'm not against a vision board.
I mean, that's what I literally put, are they helpful? ? Because I hear about them, but I've never went to somebody's house and was like, oh, nice vision board.
No. I mean, I think they're private. I mean, I don't know if anyone's like sharing their vision board. Like, I don't know. Okay. I love like a good collage. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I knew you were going to say that. I was like, you just want to put things together and like match things.
I do. I'm like, I want to cut a bunch of shit out of a magazine and like make like weird letters fit together with like cool pictures of like, you know, weird shit. I don't know.
You sure you just don't want to write a ransom note?
Oh.
Look, she's like, you have 7 days.
Yeah. Okay, never mind. Scratch the vision boards. You're all getting ransom notes.
Yeah.
Patreon, you got a ransom note.
There you go. I love that idea. You know, people pay for that. Like personalized ransom notes. That'd be dope. I want
coming
one.
For you, Barbara. Yeah. I know.
Frame it. Put it in the bathroom.
$200. Yeah. What do we say? $200? That's not that much money. What am I talking about?
Yeah, nobody's gonna.
$200 or nothing will happen because
because this is a fake ransom note. It's actually my vision board.
It's my vision board.
Same thing. It's the same thing. Number 2, sell or throw away unusable furniture. So do some serious purging. Don't lug old BS into your new space. How do you think? Have we done that wrong? Have we done that right?
Okay, well, when we lived together, we were in college. So all we could afford was free. So
yeah, we had to lug whatever we had.
Yeah, we would lug whatever we had. We also lived in a shoebox. I mean, our apartment was literally cut in half with the apartment next door. It was. Like, it had one door in the whole apartment. No, we didn't even have a door in the bedroom. We had to put up those tiki things. So every time you had to walk into our room, it was like, like, I can't even do the noise, but like, it was like what are those, like bamboo? Like, oh my God.
Yeah, it was like a luau every day.
It was a luau every day. It was ridiculous. But so that's all we could afford. But yeah, no, I mean, to that point, we were just talking about this. Like, we're not really materialistic people. Not that you have to be materialistic to want your own things. Like, I think you should hold out to get the things you want in your home that you want. I 100% appreciate people taking things as they need, but it's really nice when you can make a space your own. Yes. And that doesn't mean it has to be top of the line. It could be something you find at, you know, a garage sale, a flea market, like a thrift store, and then you can paint it, and then you have put that effort into it. I love like a DIY project in that sense. Like, I'm not talking just vision boards. I'm talking like resanding and repainting like your bed frame and like making it your own and stuff like that. Yeah. So for those pieces, I say those are worth taking with you.
Right.
But if it's something you bought at like IKEA or Big Lots and, you know, or Amazon. Yeah. You're like, this is one screw from falling apart entirely, and I put it together following the instructions. Then yeah, it's fine. You can get a new one.
Right. Yeah. It only came with one screw anyway.
Yeah, exactly. I taped it to the wall. Yeah. Right. It's no, taped exactly. Yeah.
And I've done that wrong. When I was in San Diego, I mean, shopping at IKEA is kind of doing it wrong. Let's just be real. It's fun. I'm not knocking it. I get it. It's a fun time. I love the little setups. But the reality is that when I sit on their couch and my feet are hanging off, I'm not that tall of a person. Like, this isn't a real couch.
You're pretty tall.
Fair enough. In comparison, it's all subjective. But I shouldn't sit on a couch and my feet.
Okay. Come on. This is the translation I'm getting. I need to go to IKEA and sit on a couch to feel like a normal sized person. Is that right? Yeah. Okay.
It's perfect for you. Yeah. Yeah. No, exactly. And like, that's the thing. I've done it wrong in the sense of I've bought things thinking that they could come with me to the next place. Yeah. And I found out the hard way and the more expensive way that they couldn't. Like, I tried to move like a bed frame, like from IKEA. It was from IKEA. And I tried to move it to my next place when I was in San Diego. And I was like, shit, this was a bad idea. And now I have to waste time because now I have to like just crumple this, what is it? Like the compressed wood. Like, I just had to like crumple it up and like throw it away quickly.
It's like wood chips that have been glued together.
Yeah. And it was like really annoying. So now, learning from that and just experiences over time, throw it away, like throw it or give it away. We gave a lot away.
Donate it. Let it be someone in that area. Yeah. Let someone get good use out of it. It doesn't mean it's like a bad piece of furniture. Right. But moving is expensive, transporting things is expensive, packing stuff up is hard. Like, really evaluate what you have and what is worth taking. If you have a shitty bookshelf but you love your books, take your books. Right. Go to IKEA again in the new place, or if you are in a place in your life where you can invest in a nice bookshelf and you're ready to make that purchase, then maybe that's the time to do it. Right.
And you'd be surprised at what you can find at thrift stores. I know obviously it's not like an untapped market. A lot of people know that thrift stores are great, but our local neighborhood actually had like a bazaar where a bunch of different houses like set up their own little situation out front. And we just went to like a garage sale. There was like a whole like map made out for it and everything. We just got to go and like look at different pieces. And things like that, are, like you said, are just going to be much more meaningful. And you can just get to you get the vibe of the place that you're in, right? Like when I was asking Morgan for tips on, like what to decorate my house with and like find paintings, she was like, oh, you should go to like a local farmer's market, like find a local artist, right? Like find things that fit that space in that area, and I won't even knock, just going to like Target or Ross or Marshall's or something like that.
Oh, I mean, I have so many like pieces from there that I do like.
Yeah. And they might even be just a little bit more unique and a little bit more fitting to what you're going for. And I think you might be surprised at what you can find locally. Local boutiques can be expensive, but even just going to local thrift stores, things like that, you can really find some really cool pieces that you can make your own, which is really cool.
Yeah.
The next one was funny. And we're almost to the last one, but the next one was funny. It was about choosing the best moving companies, which I was just like, nice luxury. Like who I mean, don't get me wrong. If you, again, I'll just say it just like I said, if you have a stipend to move, get a good moving company. Totally understand, obviously, but the reality is just that, like, again, moving a lot of things to a new space, it's very similar to, like, bringing old things from your old relationship into new ones. Like, if those are things that you did with your old friends or your old partner or whatever, like, leave those things, like, create new things. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because it really is expensive to lug things across country or state lines or even down the street, whatever. So you just kind of have to, like, weigh the pros and cons on that. Like, is it really worth it? Like, do I really, like, just because that, bed frame was awesome, is it going to be that awesome that it, like, needs to, like, take up its own packing, tape and all these things? Like, it's just such a thing, which the next thing on the list was packing materials, because it's like, if you're going to pack up a bunch of stuff, it has to be packed properly. Like, that's a whole extra few days of, like,
what I'm saying.
Planning.
Moving is rough. Moving is not great. Like, no, it's hard. Really, it's a lot. And then you have to unpack when you get there. Like, the whole bit. Much cardboard and, like, so much.
I know.
It's a lot.
And then after you unpack, you have to, like, break down all the boxes and get rid of all the boxes and dispose of everything properly. And it's just like, you could have saved yourself a lot of time and a lot of headache by just being in an emptier house for a while. Honestly, I don't know if that's only me, but being in, like, our empty house for a while was kind of nice. There wasn't things everywhere. There wasn't boxes everywhere. It was just, like, a few things that we ordered. So, we had to get rid of those boxes, but, like, it was just, like, relieving, because it was like, I don't have to worry about figuring out where do things go. It's like, no, when new things come, I get to put those somewhere, and that's where they go now. It was such a nice experience. Yeah. So I will say that. So I will say, yes, me and Morgan have definitely done things wrong. But when it comes down to it, when you move to a new place, there's going to be so many other things that you're going to have to worry about, that it really isn't worth the energy of giving so much of your time and energy to things that you're trying to, like, keep and, like, remember about the place that you lived, right? Like, memories will last. You know what I mean? Like, you have the memories. I think you can say this about even, like, clothing items and stuff. If you're just like, oh, but I like this sweater and it's, like, comfortable to me. Okay, maybe take a few things, like we said, figure out what's an heirloom. Figure out your heirloom. But everything else, enjoy the process of being in a new place.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's kind of hard, like that letting go feeling, but you're relocating into something new. Doesn't mean you are just dropping every feeling you had from the past, but I think it is nice to be reminded that it's okay to embrace that, however which way works best for you. Whether you have a lot of things that you want to move and get a moving company, or whether you have a lot of things that you're ready to let go of, then sell that stuff to people who need it and start your journey new, Yes. Go get ready to go to the flea market, to the thrift store, buy yourself some paint and some sandpaper, and make something new for yourself.
So all in all, relocating is just that. It's going to be a gamble, and you just have to weigh out for yourself what you want in that process, and if it's really worth, going through, because it's going to be a purge. So you're going to have to really kind of do some introspection anyway and see, what are you leaving behind, right? Versus what is there to gain from going to this new place. But all in all, I would say a new experience is always worth it, and it doesn't mean that it's going to be the best. It just means that it's going to be new. And sometimes new is just worth it, and it's just what you need. So I'll leave you with that. And thank you so much for coming on this ride with us. This was definitely an open-ended, open beginning.
Not an open and shut.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. But in reality, that's kind of what it feels like to move. So get used to it because you're going to be all over the place.
So true.
Yeah, but thank you so much for listening to another episode of Am I Doing This Wrong? Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave us a review wherever you get your podcasts. Please join the Wrong community, and follow us on social media at Wrong the Podcast, primarily Instagram. Check us out on YouTube for the visual conversation. And yeah, we look forward to having many more conversations.
And we will see you guys next time.
Until then.
Okay, bye.